History Lesson 4, Addendum, Shatibi's Conception of Bid'ah, Religious Innovation. So carrying on with this series of videos, I was requested to actually explain how Shatibi understood the idea of religious innovation, which is something that is hotly contested by all Muslims, and historically it's been hotly contested as well. So before I go into exactly what his conception of bid'ah was using this thesis, I'd mention that you should read it for yourself because it's an excellent summary of al-i'tisam. And what I'm going to give you is very, very limited details on what he says about the topic, just his basic understanding of it. But there are many other juristic features that are mentioned, like istihsan and maslaha mursala and many other maqasid al-shar'iyya, many other important concepts that Shatibi mentions that I do not have the time to get into. But the first thing I will mention is Shatibi's specific milieu. Uh, the author of the thesis, mentions Ibn Khaldun stating, Sufi assumptions are identical to those of the Imam Shia concerning their Imam. The latter believed in two ways in which the oneness of the deity with the Imam was achieved. So Ibn Khaldun uh, compared the extreme Sufis with Imam Shia, and he gave two examples of how they are like Imam Shia. He said, first, the primeval deity is hidden in all creative things, including both that which can be sensed and that which is intelligible. Uh, and the second is the belief in wahdatul wujud, and here it's translated as absolute oneness. Moreover, Ibn Khaldun states, uh, the Sufis consider their saints to be the pole of gnosis, which revolves around them, a doctrine reminiscent of the Shia tradition of Ali. So there is a dichotomy between the types of Sufis that Ash-Shatibi is dealing with. There are pious Sufis that Shatibi explicitly mentions by name, and there are innovative Sufis, and the example of the innovative Sufis are the ones that Ibn Khaldun is describing in this particular instance. Then a little bit about the history of Bid'ah. So the first thing that is, or the first person that actually talked about condemning bid'ah was a scholar called Muhammad ibn Waddah al-Qurtubi, who died in 287, and he described it as a clear violation of what he understood to be religious dogma. There is an important point first. Bid'ah initially takes on a dogmatic dimension. It's dogmatic bid'ah that Ibn Waddah is talking about. Then later on, it's developed and it includes not only dogma but praxis. And the example he gives, and the examples here are not chronological because Ibn al-Jawzi al-Baghdadi, who died in 597, comes after someone like Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri, who died in 456. But he mentions Ibn al-Jawzi because there is a trajectory of how bid'ah or the condemnation of bid'ah develops. So Ibn al-Jawzi said that the notion of bid'ah pertains to customs not attested to in the sunnah of the Prophet or his companions. And then he reportedly rejected every novelty uh, touching on custom and religious rites. Can you see? And that's very important that you understand that there is a separation between dogma and religious rites stroke customs. Further on, it develops that a Maliki jurist, and again the chronology is skewed a bit because this Maliki jurist dies in 474 before Ibn al-Jawzi. His name is al-Turtushi, also censures bid'ah as an unlawful practice, and for him there is no novelty between muhdatha and innovation, and the concept of adiyat and ibadat is brought in. So it's no longer dogma. Dogma seems to have been settled by this point, but there is the question of practice, and al-Turtushi defines customs and ibadat as a separate category to uh, uh, dogma. Then, after at-Turtushi, we have um, another scholar called Ibn Abi Shama, and Ibn Abi Shama says that there is a bid'ah called bid'ah mustaqbaha, so hated innovation, and he further divides it into two, bid'ah muharrama and bid'ah makruha, and then there's a second ambiguous bid'ah, bid'ah mushtabiha. So the concept of bid'ah is developing quite a lot now. Various categorizations, various terms, and various um, understandings of it. Thereafter, there comes the Ibn Taymiyah. Ibn Taymiyah dies in 723, and his notion of bid'ah is based directly on the Quran, the Sunnah, ijma', and qiyas. Ijma' is consensus, qiyas is analogy or ratio legis, as mentioned here. And he claimed that all foreign anniversaries and festivities should be counted as objectionable, since these were based on the practices of non-Muslims and had no basis in the Quran and the Sunnah. And a similar line that did not differentiate between religious or mundane matters was adopted by Al-Ghazali, who died very easy to remember, 1111, and Ibn Hazm 456. So Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Ghazali, and Ibn Hazm take a similar line to this. Then we come to Shatibi's conception of bid'ah, and he splits bid'ah into bid'ah haqiqiyya and bid'ah idafiyya. And this is from the conclusion, but he states he begins to divide matters from pure ibadat, from that which is exclusively customary. The former are taken for granted as submission to God, while the latter can be modified according to human needs and consensus. So uh, there is real true bid'ah, and then there is relative bid'ah. So it starts initially as dogma, then it becomes ritual rites, then it becomes practice. Then Ibn Abi Shama uh, brings different categorizations of bid'ah, and examples that Shatibi gives of bid'ah, relative bid'ah, for example, is defined first of all as an innovation rooted in a clear textual indicant, such as in the case of congregational prayer on the night of Ramadan, and second, as innovation based on ambiguous indicants or no indicant at all, such as, for example, reciting dhikr habitually in congregation. Another thing that Shatibi mentions in this thesis is he has two conceptions, bid'ah saghira and bid'ah kabira, minor bid'ah and major bid'ah. And he gives uh, a number of four qualifications of how you can distinguish between them. The first is you persist in performing the act. The second is you tell others to practice the act. The third is you practice it in public. And the fourth is you discredit its violence, or you discredit those who attack it. So if it has these four characteristics, then it's a big bid'ah according to Shatibi. Assistance, encouragement of third parties, public practice, and discrediting its violation. That, in a nutshell, is Shatibi's conception of bid'ah. And one other concept that I think this rests upon, and the crux of this rests upon, is one conception that Shatibi mentions in this quote here. So, in addition to his division of innovation into ibadat and adiyat, haqiqiyya and idafiyya, saghira and kabira, he distinguishes ibadah as those acts whose prohibition and command is rationally not understood. So things like praying, fasting, and Hajj, you can't rationally understand these acts. There's no benefit rationally to praying, to fasting, and Hajj. But customs, they can be understood. You do it because of your public benefit. So you buy and sell for benefit, you marry for benefit, uh, and crime is committed for the benefit of the criminal. So here is his division between ibadah and ada. Again, this is a huge topic, but this is just a very quick summary of what Shatibi conceives bid'ah to be. Stay tuned.